Have you ever watched or read a novel entitled Uncle Tom's Cabin, which tells the story of life in slavery? I would like to introduce you to the African people. Way back then, in their village, there was an uprising. A local militia group came through, looting, raping, burning, and killing indiscriminately. Some of them managed to hide and escape the onslaught. But lots of them were not fortunate. With no money and no shelter, they decided to leave their village. They ended meat by collecting plastic, glasses, and bottles from the street and swapping them for small amounts of money so that they could get food while they're living on the street. One day, they were approached by a group of men who seemed to understand their situation. They began to build friendship and they began to trust them. This group of men seemed to understand all that they had been through. They offered them the opportunity to get away from all of it, to start afresh, to get a new job, and to rid themselves of some of the memories that this place held. These poor African people decided that things couldn't get any worse and decided to take the opportunity. They did not realize that the job wasn't expected. They didn't realize they would get on a plane for the first time ever, nor did they realize they would be sold. This poor African people was introduced to a man who told them they must do everything they told them to do. All girls was then locked into that flat and raped daily by men who rented them out. Children are taken from their families and trafficked, vanished, and they forced them to work in an endless hours. They didn't speak the language and they had no idea where to go for help. They were all isolated. They were all trapped and had been enslaved. From what you've heard, we can say that the cruelty of the African people that day was severe. And I know that such activities like this are still existing in this world, and yet it is illegal. There are tens of millions of people trapped in various forms of slavery throughout the world today. Labor slavery, sex trade, forced marriage, child slavery, human trafficking, and so on. And yet, we are unaware that it is happening. Did you know that slavery is a hidden crime that most target or often target the most vulnerable here in our society, resulting in exploitation and inhumane suffering, and that should not exist in this world. I'm standing here today to tell to all of you that slavery is still existing and we must take an action. We must work together to eradicate these injustices and create a more equal, free, and just nation. Let us be their voice for freedom. As a tourism student, we need to take responsibility to educate ourselves so we can change our world for better. The more we know, the more we can change the people around us. And I believe education is the key to eradicate slavery. I have these images right now. They knew that their image would be seen by people like us, and I wanted them to know that we will be seeing them and that we will do all we can to help them and understand their plight. These images are not the issues. They are of human beings like us, all deserving of the same respect, same dignity, and simple humanity we all deserve. I want to shine a light on the truth because it is only then we have the power to change our world. Let us be their voice. Won't you join me?
Wala to ang kakayanan na magsumbong kasi nga po bawal naman po ako lumabas at binubugbog niya po ako physically. Natatakot po ako kasi nga po at the age of 12 parang hindi ko po kayang lumaban.
College student Cassie, not her real name, recalls painful memories from a decade ago. As a young girl of 12 to 16 years, she was sold into the cyber sex trade by a man she only knew as a neighbor's relative.
Sabi niya, papaaralin niya ako, bibigyan niya ako at yung family ko na magandang buhay, kinabukasan.
Authorities receive reports of hundreds of similar cases yearly. A United Nations Children's Fund or UNICEF study in 2016 said the Philippines has emerged as a center of child sex abuse material production. UNICEF says English literacy, availability and access to technology, and established money transfer apps are some factors that contributed to this concern. For the past 5 years, the Social Welfare Department has rescued over 2,000 children from trafficking, mostly young women aged 13 to 17. Many of them were exploited by people they were close to, like relatives and sometimes even their own parents. The DSWD believes the pandemic worsens the problem. For one, children are spending more time at home. Meantime, unemployment skyrocketed.
Madami yung nawalan ng trabaho, madami yung walang pinagkakakitaan ngayon. So yung poverty ang main driver natin.
Quarantine restrictions have also made it more difficult for authorities to carry out rescue operations.
So even if we get reports from the local government units, ang hirap na pasukin, lalong-lalo na kung ang isang area is nasa ECQ. So ang dami namin pinagdadaanan na proseso.
Overwhelmed with cries for help, civil society group Voice of the Free set up a quarantine area so it can continue accepting victims. Aside from providing shelter to victims, the group works with the education department to raise awareness in poor communities, areas they consider to be possible hotspots for cybersex trafficking of children.
Ang daming mga kasi hindi naman alam ng mga bata kung saan sila pupunta saan sila hihingi ng tulong.
Voice of the Free believes preventing this crime is so important. The trauma can take years of therapy to heal.
Hindi nila alam kung saan nakakalat yung kanilang mga picture, kung kanino na shinare, kung i-judge na sila ng community, i-accept pa ba sila ng mga friends nila. So it's really stripped their dignity as a person.
The group also works with the Justice Department to help victims go after their pimps and former customers, mostly from Europe and the US. For the DOJ, its efforts face technology and manpower challenges. While criminals use popular sites like Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok, they also go deep into the dark web or sites that are only accessible via specialized web browsers.
Itong mga offenders, advanced lagi. They're like 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps ahead. So we have the technology now, and then by next year, iba na naman yung technology yung gagamitin nila or even just a few months. Grabe mag-evolve yung technology. So, yun, naiipit na naman tayo doon.
Another challenge, getting the victims to go after their own family members.
Yung attachment nila at love doon sa perpetrator. Kasi minsan nagkakaroon sila ng feeling of guilt na sila yung magkukos ng kapahamakan nitong perpetrator na ito.
Just last year, a regional trial court in Angeles City sentenced an American national to life imprisonment for forcing children into cybersex shows. As for Cassie, justice has been served as well, with her pimp also behind bars for life. Now, she spends most of her time earning a college degree and helping other victims rise up and see the bright side.
Huwag sila mawalan ng pag-asa kasi maraming taong naniniwala sa kanila and maraming taong tutulong. Hindi ka nag-iisa.
AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.